Prendergast.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. The 2016 Northern Ireland Executive Assessment of Problem Gambling demonstrated that we suffer from a significantly higher problem gambling prevalence figure than the rest of the UK, 2.3% compared to just 0.5% for England. Put it another way, our gambling harm rates were 5 times higher than those of England. We have to assume that the situation has since deteriorated here as it has in England. At that time, as now, the UK Minister had a regulation making power in the 2005 Gambling Act to change and charge a gambling levy, requiring the industry to make a contribution to address the socially destructive effects of gambling. He used the threat of its deployment to extract a voluntary contribution from the industry. We eventually caught up, making a similar provision through Section 15 of our 2022 Gambling Act. Although, unlike the GB levy, our levy appears to only apply to terrestrial gambling. If I am right about this limitation, it constitutes a major difficulty because the problem prevalence figures associated with online gambling are significantly higher than those pertaining to terrestrial gambling, and the gross gambling yield figures demonstrate that more than half gross gambling yield comes from online gambling. Last year, the government determined that it was time to use its regulation-making powers, and on the 12th of December, the Gambling Levy Regulations 2025 were laid before Parliament. They apply to both terrestrial and remote gambling, placing a significantly higher levy on the latter. Operating from the coming financial year onwards, it is estimated they will raise 90 to 100 million annually, an increase of 40 million over the voluntary contributions. I do not believe that the regulation-making powers in our 2022 Act have yet been deployed, and even when they are, it seems doubtful they will engage remote gambling. If my assessment is correct, 2 things are urgently required. First, we must use the regulation-making powers in the 2022 Act from the 1st of April so those experiencing terrestrial gambling harm in Northern Ireland are not disadvantaged compared with GB. And second, we must introduce legislation applying the levy to online gambling for the same purpose. If we cannot do the latter, then we should ask the UK Government to urgently make the relevant legislation changes to the regulation-making power in the 2005 Act, so the levy applies to Northern Ireland in relation to online gambling.